Hello, I'm Susan Elliott, and today we're going to be talking to David Stull. David is the president of the San Francisco Conservatory of Music. He's going to tell us about how the pandemic has impacted students coming back to school in the fall. But he's also going to tell us about how he first arrived in San Francisco in 2013 with a very specific 7-year plan, and how that plan has come to be fully realized. I've just been reading about the Bose Center and all of those. It's very exciting times for you all right now.
It's a tremendously exciting time. I mean, despite the challenges of COVID-19, reality is that we have managed to continue to raise money for the building. We've managed to keep the building on track. We were exactly on budget and on time right up until March. And now the budget is essentially intact. That's not a problem. But as far as a few delays, we've experienced those. Though the building will open and we will move our students in on October 1st.
Wow. So I was going to ask you about that. Tell us about how it's going and how you've been preparing for this unusual fall semester and so on, like that.
The reality is that the spring certainly equipped us with probably the most accelerated learning path faculty, staff, or any institution has had to deal with relative to transitioning a curriculum. But of course, this wasn't isolated to conservatories or to us. Right. This is across education and across all industries around the globe. Clearly, an institution such as ours that is committed to in-person instruction, ensembles, the notion that the intimacy of the experience is really what this is about, live performance in concert halls. Transitioning that into a mode of an electronic universe presents challenges, sure. But it also presents opportunities. The fact is that we decided to be very open with our students that yes, there were things we couldn't do, and we did lament that. It's not to say there's a loss with that, but there are opportunities to think about instruction, learning how to use click tracks, understanding how to work with each other electronically, because so much of the world now, particularly around game music and film music, functions in these modes. Mm-hmm. And also, this led to us also be able to bring artists in from around the globe on a more frequent basis to work with students, because we weren't accounting for travel and their schedules and their performance requirements. They could be in another location. And while those opportunities have to a degree always been there, the fact is that transitioning into a Zoom platform and a Zoom universe really facilitates that more actively. So I can give you the rundown on the plan for how we're going to return this fall, if you like. Sure. So in any event, the reality is we will have our entire curriculum will be online, but we're also going to be operating in person. So at this point, about 30% of our student body is elected to study online. For us, any faculty, staff, or student member of the community that needs to feel that they want to remain virtual, they can. Within our building, we're very fortunate that this building at Oak Street was constructed, and I should say completed in 2006. The Bose Center is slated to come online here in October, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But it gives us a core technical backbone that is more sophisticated, say, than other facilities in the United States. So we can run a program here called the Dante system. This allows us in real time to have as many as 30 different rooms connected, where it's as if you're playing and talking with somebody as if they're 10 feet away. And we've been working with this technology for a while. It's very exciting. We can teach lessons. We can actually have chamber rehearsals. We can play duets, trios. We can have a brass section, a wind section, and percussion. And this allows us to provide truly socially distanced, isolated, but open instruction with no latency. When I say no latency, it's about 10 milliseconds, like being 10 feet away. Yeah. So that's a fantastic system. But then with masks, we intend to be, in the halls with groups up to 12. In San Francisco, around the health order here, that's 12 people in a hall, or smaller groups in classrooms. So all of our academic courses will be online, but chamber music with instruments where you can be masked, and string ensembles, percussion, piano, et cetera, where you can be masked. Those things will be happening to a very great degree in person. We'll be testing every faculty, staff, and student member of the community around COVID-19. There'll be COVID-19 tests before you enter the building. Because of the nature of our campus, we have 2 entry points, one at Bowes, one at Oak Street. So you can't come into the building unless you're a member of the faculty, staff, or student body. And this is going to allow us then to do trace testing and actually contact tracing throughout the course of the year. So we feel it's a very safe model. There are a whole range of courses now we're teaching around the use of technology and performance. We've enhanced our streaming capabilities from over last year. At this time, we ran something we called the Tiny Dorm series, where we were streaming live concerts on a continuous basis. So we're excited about those projects. We have 5 camera feeds now for the concert halls. So we look at producing the content in the medium which is going to exist, which is around a computer screen for the time being. So an enormous amount of effort, but something that while challenging, and we certainly look forward to returning to in-person instruction, we're still excited about the possibilities.
So how common is this Dante system?
Well, the Dante system is certainly accessible technology. I have to say the conservatories in the US have been cooperating more than I've ever seen in my last 30 years in working in this industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Curtis, Colburn, Manhattan, SFCM, NEC, the New World Symphony, CIM, are all once a week, the presidents all meet for an hour. And the deans are meeting for an hour, the CFOs are meeting for an hour, literally have connected the conservatories across the nation at every level to share the best information we have. In fact, because we couldn't bring all of our students out of mainland China, we have a consortium with the Shanghai Conservatory, and we reached out to NEC in Manhattan, and they've joined us now. And for students who can't come to the United States from China, the Shanghai Conservatory is actually offering the ensemble coursework for us, allowing them to use their meal plan, live there in the residence hall, and take studio classes there while they're registered with us online. So this has yielded this fantastic partnership, which I think is really a wonderful outcome from this kind of experience.
I want to talk about the Bowes Center, but I think it is absolutely tied in with how the conservatory has changed since you arrived, which was in 2013, correct?
Right.
And so when you arrived, what was it that made you think something needs to change here from the conservatory model?
Right. It's a great question. Back in 2013, in January of that year, I got a phone call from the chair of the board here. He's still the chair now, a gentleman named Tim Fu, and explained that they were looking for a new president. I was the dean of the Oberlin Conservatory at that time and had been the dean for 12 years at that point. Mm-hmm. And Oberlin is a fantastic school. I had a wonderful experience there as dean. We built a new facility for the jazz program, the Cole building. We'd had tremendous success. And he explained that SFCM really wanted to become truly the top conservatory of its kind in the world, meaning they saw no reason for San Francisco not to start to lead the world as a conservatory. And my comment was, I think that is certainly possible for San Francisco, but it's not about emulating any other program. It's about you having a program unique to San Francisco and one that truly takes on the challenges of the future. So it would mean a substantial curricular change. You have the opportunity to do this, it's true, but a major investment in curriculum, a major investment in faculty, and a complete change of direction. Maintaining, of course, the core values that have always made a conservatory education a great education, but recognizing that the world and the challenges of the world require us to give our students more opportunities, and that education should ultimately liberate opportunity. And if we use that as the axiom for thinking about our work, that requires us to evolve. And so my proposal to him was at that time, I will give you a 7-year strategic plan. Instead of interviewing, I will come out and present a plan. You need to invite the faculty and the staff as well as the board hearing this plan. I said, not because necessarily everyone has to agree, but the board has to know whether or not they're prepared to A, support the plan, even if there is some disagreement, and B, invest in the plan because it would be a
Yeah,
financial
and C,
undertaking.
D, E, F, G, H, and I, J, K, invest in the plan.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And the reality is that's how it began. And the board was quite excited about the direction. And ostensibly the direction was one of saying, how do we capture everything about San Francisco, which makes it unique? How do we look at the challenges of the future and provide a curriculum response to that? And in the most succinct fashion I can describe it is that conservatory education too often is categorized as vocational. It's often assessed in, how many students have we placed in an orchestra or an opera company? And that is such a tremendous devaluation of what the experience is. It's hard for me to even respond to that observation about what a conservatory is. That's not what a conservatory is. A great conservatory is one which should transform every student that enters through the experience of studying music. Musicians become remarkably capable human beings, and they have to know how to work under pressure. They must perform. They must do it at 8 o'clock. And that is such a fantastic skill set. But if left in just the corridor of music without exposing a student to the ways in which they can apply those skills to any particular set of opportunities they have, is to lose then the ability to give them the greatest opportunities they might have. Because we all know as teachers that students will come in and along the way their own talents are revealed to them. But most of the time a conservatory experience is so narrow that it doesn't allow a student to come out of that pipeline very easily.
But
So
you also, if I may interrupt you, you also have you have amazing resources in the area.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that was what the part of San Francisco where I thought this is truly an opportunity for us to provide curricular experiences because of both the presence of Silicon Valley and technology in this part of the world, the presence of Stanford and Berkeley in this part of the world, and the fact that we have the San Francisco Symphony, the opera, SF Jazz, Cal performances, SF performances, the ballet, all of which are world-class ensembles. And the conservatory in San Francisco is the only conservatory in San Francisco.
Right.
It's not Manhattan and Juilliard and Madison, NYU. This is it. And we're next door to the symphony and the opera. And what that allows for is a concentration of those resources when they come into the educational mode that is quite spectacular. But Susan, what we did very quickly was we said, look, if you have a musician, what do they need? Critical thinking skills. So how do we get a musician to engage liberal education in a way that's significant? Well, we tie it to what we're doing musically. So we have a theme every year. And the next one is professional. For us, that meant everything rests on a business platform. So we harvested from the Stanford Business School, the graduate business school, their best practices and how they train people to launch startups down there. It's the startup capital of the world here in this part of the country. So every young musician, quartet, quintet, or on your own needs to behave like a startup. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? How do I enter this market? How to develop a business plan? So that became required as part of their curriculum here. And the fourth piece was, we love to talk about entrepreneurship in music, but we never talk about what is it to take risks, meaning practicing risk-taking. So we created a space and called January Term or Winter Term. And I had this, it existed at Oberlin. It was much more liberal in its imagination here. And here, it's really about you investigating what it is you might do when you graduate. So we describe these four pillars as artist, intellectual, professional, individual.
Right.
And sometimes students would say, I know when I get out, I'm going to go to medical school. Well, we'd let them intern, in a medical practice for January instead of, learning another sonata. Other students might say, with the faculty, I have a shot at the Van Cliburn competition. The great thing about January Term is there are no scheduled classes, so a student can simply lock themselves down with a major competition agenda and have no distractions. So you take the curricular model and the money comes in at that level. And that's where I said to the board, this is where you come in. And fortunately, in this part of the world, there are those kinds of resources available. It's made a big difference.
And you're also small.
Correct. We're 485 majors in the conservatory. The other two things that we brought on board were technology applied composition. This is folks who are trained to score for video games and sound design and film.
Yeah.
but they are trained as classical composers, so they can write everything from 8 bars that sound somewhat like a Beethoven symphony to 8 bars of a rap tune. But they also know how to code and lay these tracks into whatever media they're working with. This program has been so wildly successful. It had nearly a 100% placement rate last year, and students going directly to work for our partners, Sony and Electronic Arts and Skywalker Studios. Since those engineers and those composers are teaching here, they're harvesting these kids as soon as they graduate. We had one company.
And the kids are interning over in those places as well.
Precisely. So it's right across, Dolby's right across the street. Twitter's lit. I'm not joking. It's not like seeing Russia from Alaska. I can lean out and actually see the Dolby headquarters from here in Oak Street. It's literally across the street.
Wow.
So having that core technology presence here allowed us to intersect both the donors in those markets, key people in those organizations who work on the music side. We have folks from Apple Music on our board. We have folks from Dolby on our board. And that just opens up doors to opportunity for students across the board. So it was about bringing together, and then the final thing was Roots Jazz and American Music, which is linked to the SF Jazz Center. SF Jazz now promotes more concerts than Jazz at Lincoln Center. They're the top promoter in the US these days, I should say presenter of concerts. So being able to get students onto the stage, into the venues, side by side with the symphony, the opera, SF Jazz, adding this component of liberal education, requiring everyone to have business savvy before they graduate, and then giving them the room to experiment and learn about themselves. Those are the 4 key ideas. The partnerships energize it, and the big thing behind it is, of course, the money that comes out of San Francisco, because they believe in the arts and education in this part of the world, and it makes a huge difference. The Bose Center is, 422 beds for students. Now, we overbuilt it on housing because the ballet, the SF Ballet, one of our partners, has taken a floor for their school. They actually commission our students to write new works for the ballet school, which is fantastic for our young composers. They have a class that trains pianists to work as rehearsal pianists, and a number of our pianists are actually accompanying rehearsals and making actually very, very good money doing that. And then we have the opportunity for collaboration between the 2 agencies. So they have a floor. KDFC is in the Bose Center, the local classical music station. So they're going to provide internships for our students. And then we also allow them to use this gorgeous corner recital hall to do live broadcasts. So as artists come into the Symphony of the Opera, they can join us on a Wednesday, be interviewed, say, well, Yuja, would you mind playing, what was the first piece you remember memorizing, as a young woman growing up in China? Would you play that for us today? Getting interviews with these artists and a chance to bring the local community into the fact that here's the artist who will be performing, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday with the symphony. Not only does that drive more patrons into the hall, it allows our students to have access to those artists as they come through in the form of master classes and these interviews. And KDFC, of course, becomes a very robust programming partner. So they're in the building. There's a full 2-story recording studio with a fantastic capture area in the building with 7 isolation rooms. We have spectacular classrooms with digital capture in both video and audio. Fabulous penthouse recital hall, 210 seats that looks upon City Hall and out across the top of Davies and the War Memorial, that you can jet up there, and 200 people get up there in less than 7 minutes. And then we have this wonderful restaurant, live performance space, and then luxury housing for guest faculty on the top floor. So it's a really exciting 165,000 square foot, $195 million project.
I was just going to say.
Yeah.
Let's look at the price tag.
That opens soon. It's coming this fall.
It sounds ideal. Absolutely. Sounds spectacular. So let me ask you a little bit about the fact that there is still this pandemic going on, and how that's going to impact all of this sort of interaction between students, not only among the students on campus, but as they go off campus to do internships and all that sort of stuff. How are you going to manage that?
Right. Well, the reality is that we have had this online universe has been with us now for several months.
Right.
Students, the internships probably are the trickiest things that we would do normally off campus. Students are setting up gigs where they play online for somebody, which is nice. You can have, instead of an internship, you can set up meetings once a week online. And in a strange way, people who might accept an intern if they just have to do a Zoom call every so often versus having someone come and be physically present are a little bit more willing from time to time to take that person on. So there are some opportunities there to reach out to not just people now in San Francisco, but anywhere in the world around internship opportunities and to expand that reach. And that is part of the conversation we're having about with students, is to say, this is going to end. The pandemic will end. Live performance will return. Human beings really love being together. We've learned a few things. People love live music. They love live education, and they love being together in social spaces. And technology is not a replacement for the human experience, it turns out. We've got international returns. They're like, no, people really do want to be together.
What percentage of your student body is concentrating on scores for video games and, you know, scores for films, that sort of thing? What percentage?
How big is the TAC program overall?
The TAC program?
Yeah, it's called Technology Applied Composition. The TAC program is about 70 majors out of the 485. But that doesn't begin to belie the number of students across all disciplines taking TAC courses. So that's a much, much larger, and that's in the hundreds.
Right.
Every single classical musician now, I think, needs to be equipped with a range of skills, and being facile with technology is certainly among them. And there's so much opportunity for collaboration and music making now with a technical backdrop, that we really feel that this is moving more and more towards an essential part of a student experience as they're moving through the program.
So thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Absolutely. A real delight to talk with you.
Stay in touch. This is exciting.
Okay, we will. Thank you for making the time.